Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyoti Arvinda Jyoti Arvinda Jyoti Arvinda. So I'll begin with something Mother's written when she was quite little. So her words, or from a time when she was little. From a very young age, it's not the first page of the PDF, it's perhaps the third or fourth, but just listen. From a very young age, something in me has always laughed. It sees all the catastrophes, sees all the suffering, sees it all and can't help laughing the way one laughs at something that pretends to be but isn't. Okay, so she's saying from a very young age, she just felt like laughing at all the sufferings, all the catastrophes, as if it's something that pretends to be but it isn't. So like if somebody puts on a mask, suppose a family member wants to rag you and puts on the mask of a dacoit, comes in to steal something. If you don't know it's your family member disguised as a dacoit, you get scared. But Mother could see through all masks, no? So not only family member, she intuited that everything was God playing with us, isn't it? So she never took his play seriously even from a young age. Even when there was catastrophe and suffering, she said it came to me very naturally to me to laugh at it as if it's something that pretends to be but is not. Okay? So yes, already, now this is Satprem, she was hunting down a certain illusion that must be destroyed so we may live a true life. And perhaps the most tenacious and cherished of all illusions is our love of suffering and drama. We may protest, but it is true all the same. Now, how many of us, for example, suffer a lot when we think people are thinking badly of us or speaking badly of us? Note it down. How many of us suffer a lot when we feel people are thinking badly of us or speaking badly of us? All of us, no? One of the things that we suffer with the most is not having favorable impressions in people's minds and hurting if they think badly of us, isn't it? I'm saying in general, I'm not making a sweeping statement, but by and large, that happens. So,
especially in this when we feel that we have not done something.
Whatever your justifications, but if you feel that a person who you value doesn't think well of you or has an unfavorable impression of you, you start suffering about it. So this is a piece I penned last week because I felt like it's called With Bucketfuls of Laughing Salt. Okay? One of the greatest traps for the human mind is its constant concern, it's not in your PDF, is its constant concern to create favorable impressions in people's minds, right? And a common source of unhappiness is the unease caused by the possibility of being judged negatively by people, right? We feel uneasy at the thought of my boss, my partner, my friend, somebody important to me thinking negatively of me. If we look closely at our thinking process, we will see how our thoughts are really dreams we are having in a waking state. They are as random and divorced from reality as dreams are. Do you see that? That the thoughts you're having are really dreams in a waking state. Not very different, because if a dream is random, divorced from reality, so are your thoughts. If you really study your thoughts, they are so random, so pell-mell, so divorced from reality. They are as random and divorced from reality as dreams are. If this is true for my mind, it is also true for the other mind which may be thinking of me. So the other mind thinking of me as Anahita is terrific or Anahita is awful, both are dreams in that person's mind. They are not real statements on me, right? If my thoughts are not real statements on reality, what somebody thinks of me is also a dream they are having in the waking state and not a statement of reality. The other person's thoughts of me too are dreams in a waking state. In a dream a person may be having of me, I may appear as a cantankerous and unpleasant person. However, that is not the truth of what I am. Hence, I should not care too much about how I appear in the dream thoughts the person is having about me. When I'm hurting over what someone thinks of me, it is quite liberating to recall that firstly, my thoughts regarding this are dreams. If I have a thought that A doesn't like me, that is a dream. And I am dreaming of the other person's dream of me. Do you understand? The other person thinking, for example, Anahita is awful, is a dream in that person's mind. And me hurting over that thought is a dream in my mind. So there are two levels of dreaming. That is two levels away from reality. Beautiful to smile, relax, and watch the dream and the unhappiness created with bucketfuls of laughing salt. You say no, take it with a pinch of salt. So take it with bucketfuls of laughing salt. Don't bother too much, because anyway it's a dream and it's a dream of a dream. So that's what Mother was saying. This is of course a small thing. Even bigger things, they are not really what they appear to be. So Mother said, I always knew that. So I always laughed. Even when things were painful, suffering, I used to just laugh. So this is now a passage from Savitri, first page of the PDF. A joy in the world, her master movement here. The passion of the game lighted her eyes. This is referring to the psychic being inside us. So a joy in the world, her master movement here. She's come here to just have fun, to be joyful. The passion of the game lighted her eyes. A smile on her lips welcomed earth's bliss and grief. A laugh was her return to pleasure and pain. That's the title of our talk. A laugh was her return to pleasure and pain. So the mother, the psychic being within us, it never gets affected. Our surface being may get affected, but deep down where we are one with the mother, a laugh is her return to pleasure and pain. All things she saw as a masquerade of truth, disguised in costumes of ignorance. She saw that everything that's happening in your life, you know what a masquerade is, where people wear masks. So everything is a masquerade of truth, wearing costumes of ignorance. So Mother simply says one place that never fear anyone, because everyone is me wearing a silly mask. So it's a masquerade. Behind everyone, it's just that one truth. All things she saw as a masquerade of truth, disguised in costumes of ignorance, crossing the years to immortality. all she could confront with the strong spirit's peace. But since she knows the toil of mind and life, as a mother feels and shares her children's lives, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss. So, all of us have the portion of the Divine Mother within us, and that's called the psychic being. And that psychic being, its response to pleasure and pain is just a laugh, because the psychic being knows everything. It knows that everything is just God playing with me. So I don't take that play seriously enough to get upset. So we see this in the lives of saints like Ramakrishna. Once when a snake slithered up to him and was in front of him, he just laughed and said, "Oh Mother." He was of course totally besotted with the Divine Mother. So he just laughed and said, "Oh Mother, you've come to me like this today." And the snake went away. That's the whole thing. When you see through the game, God drops his mask. But till you don't see through the game will get more and more serious and intricate. But the moment you see through and recognize that it's only God behind every appearance, you won the game. And God plays the game with you because he wants you to win it. No, it's like it said, God is an eternal child playing an eternal game in an eternal garden. And in any game of hide and seek, if the child knew that it wasn't going to be discovered, there'd be no joy. The child wants to be discovered by you. So at every moment in the game, there's a gentle prodding, there's a gentle cluing, there's a gentle pulling you towards the truth to see through the game. So Mother knows that this game can get quite terrifying for us if we don't know the truth behind it. So she puts forth a portion of herself inside each one of us in the center of our heart. It's called the psychic being. So all things she saw as a masquerade of the truth. As a mother feels and shares her children's lives, she puts forth a small portion of herself, a being no bigger than the thumb of man, into a hidden region of the heart, to face the pang and to forget the bliss, to share the suffering and endure earth's wounds, and labor mid the labor of the stars. This in us laughs and weeps, suffers the stroke, exults in victory, struggles for the crown. Identified with the mind and body and life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat. So we feel we are suffering, but actually we exist as a mental construct, right? We don't really exist how we think we are. So the mental construct, which is really a phantom, suffers. And a phantom suffering is no suffering really. The one who's really experiencing everything we experience is who we really are. And that's the psychic being, right? So that is the Sarvanubhu, the receiver of every experience. And the joy is the one who really receives the experience is never wounded by it. So if you look at the whole design of life, it's so compassionate. The phantom you appears to suffer, but the real you is never, who's really experiencing everything, is designed in a way that it can never suffer, right? Just like if there's a movie playing and there's a screen behind, there can be a murder happening in the movie, but the white screen won't get stabbed. The white screen won't bleed, the white screen won't get wounded. So what you really are is the white screen of awareness behind the play of thoughts of your mind. That's the psychic being, and that never gets wounded. So a laugh is a response to pleasure and pain. This in us laughs and weeps, suffers the stroke, exults in victory, struggles for the crown. Identified with mind and body and life, it takes on itself their anguish and defeat, bleeds with fate's whips, hangs upon the cross, yet is the unwounded and immortal self supporting the actor in the human scene. Through this she sends us her glory and her powers, pushes to wisdom's height, through misery's gulfs. She gives us strength to do our daily task and sympathy that partakes of others' grief, and the little strength we have to help our race. We who must fill the role of the universe, acting itself out in a slight human shape, and on our shoulders carry the struggling world. This is in us the Godhead small and marred. In this human portion of divinity, she sees the greatness of the soul in time, to uplift from light to light, from power to power, till on a heavenly peak it stands a king. In body weak, in its heart an invincible might, it climbs stumbling, held by an unseen hand, a toiling spirit in a mortal shape. Now, this is Mother's words when she was, again these are her recollections from the time she was little, okay? So she says that is consciousness which I felt like a light and a force. I felt it here above the head. It was a very pleasant sensation. I would sit in a little armchair made specially for me, all alone in my room. I didn't know what it was, you see, not a thing, nothing, mentally zero. So please remember, Mother had no spiritual teacher as a child. In fact, she grew up in a Catholic family, and she from a young age decided that I'm not going to accept this God which is preached in churches, who keeps a tab of reward and punishment. I don't want such a tab. So she didn't even at a mental level have a belief in the God that the church spoke about. But these experiences just came to her from the time she was very little, because after all she was the Adi Shakti, the Divine Mother. So she said, I had a very pleasant feeling of something very strong, very luminous, and it was here above the head, consciousness, and I felt that's what I have to live, what I have to be. Not with all those words naturally, but then I would pull it down, for it was really my raison d'etre, the reason for living. Otherwise, I was in a stunned amazement all the time, and the blows I received constantly. Somewhere they talk about the Holocaust of the Divine Mother. There's that story that when creation happened, there were 4 beings of light who came down, and each got egoistic, so they became beings of darkness. And when the creation was falling apart, the Divine Mother prayed to God that please save the creation, and that's when he sanctioned her to descend into matter as an emanation of love, and that love is working in matter to make it more and more conscious over a period of time. So that is called the Holocaust of the Divine Mother, because she had to leave everything that was her, truth, bliss, wisdom, and descend into this world which was the complete opposite. So in a way, that's the hints when little Meera, that was her name as a child, she came to the world, she found humanity so jarring on her senses that she says, I lived in a constant sense of stupefaction, that how is it like this? How are people like this? So she says, How is it possible? You know, all the baseness, all the lies, all the hypocrisy, all that is crooked, all that distorts and undoes the flow of the force. And I would see it in my parents, in circumstances, in friends, in everything. A stupefaction. It wasn't translated intellectually. It was translated by that She had no thoughts about it. She was just stupefied, stunned. It was, and I went through the whole life up to the age of 20 or 25 when I began to encounter knowledge and someone who explained it to me what it all was. Like that, in that stupefaction. What is this life? What is this, what people are? What? And I was as though beaten black and blue. So whenever I felt sad, I was most careful not to say anything to my mother or father, because my father didn't give a hoot and my mother would scold me. That was always the first thing she did. And so I would go to my room, sit down in my little armchair, and there I could concentrate and try to understand in my own way. And the experience was automatic. I only had to sit down for a moment to feel it, feel this force over her head and the force which would come. It is mother's very first experience. Now Satprem speaking, it is the key to everything. Yes, a force which was like a consciousness because it understood. It was comprehension itself, pure, naked. Yet it was a force because her senses perceived it. First a child touches, feels. So normal children will feel earth, sky, whatever. Mother as a child perceived this force very sensorially. She didn't intellectually know anything about it. And she pulled downwards and it filled her with well-being. Indeed, when that descends, one feels as if charged with freshness and light, exactly like a plant breathing. It even seems as if one is breathing for the first time ever. Sri Aurobindo would call it consciousness force. It is the Shakti, the driving force of the worlds. So Mother has said something very beautiful here. She said whenever she was upset as a child, somehow it was the greater design that there was no human being available to her. Her father didn't give a hoot, she said, and her mother would scold her. So she was all the time in a state of stupefaction, and that's when she was pushed to just sitting with herself, feeling the force overhead without anyone telling her that it exists. And moment she felt it, she would feel free and light. So if that happened in the mother's life, sometimes when we are upset, we are always waiting for some angel to come to our rescue, some friend to call out to, somebody to discuss it with. And sometimes nobody is available, right? And we shouldn't feel that it's because life is bad or the world is bad. But it's part of the greater design. When there's nobody else to talk to and you sit with yourself, sometimes the most profound and the deepest answers come from within you. And this is part of life's plan sometimes, to push you into that corner of being alone, because otherwise, like Sri Aurobindo was pushed into solitary confinement, because he said, many times I had an indication that I should give up this freedom struggle the way I was fighting it, but I was too attached to my work. So I had to be pushed into solitary confinement for that whole magic of Krishna coming to me, etc., to unfold. So when nobody is available to us, sometimes that's the greatest blessing, because nobody can guide you better than your own inner wisdom. And if we have people outside, we are too conditioned. We'll choose that over sitting with ourselves and getting guidance from within. Yeah?
About your own self, like you get confused with your own two answers or something.
Yeah, so the thing is, if you ask your mind, the voice in your head, it's not really you. And it can give you a very strong argument for A plus, and it can give you an equally strong argument 2 hours later for A minus, the total opposite. So don't take that guidance very strongly. Just sit with mother and tell her, I don't know what to do, but I'm giving this over to you. You will guide me either through my thoughts or through somebody else, or you will take action in life which is the right way to go. And then just one step at a time. Don't decide mentally you will do this or that, because the mind never knows. So, not only is consciousness force, not only is consciousness being, but consciousness is joy, ananda. Consciousness, joy, chit, ananda. To be conscious is joy. When consciousness is disengaged from the thousands of mental, vital, or physical vibrations in which it was absorbed, we discover joy. So I gave you the example of the movie and the screen. The screen, the witness inside us, the sakshi inside us, consciousness, its very fabric is joy. It's made up of joy. So whenever you fall back into the witnessing poise, you don't need anything else outside to make you happy. You're already happy. You're free. So the whole being is as if filled with a mass of living force, a crystalline, motionless, objectless force, pure consciousness, pure force, pure joy. For it is all the same thing, a solid joy, a vast and peaceful substance of joy which seems beginningless, endless, causeless, also seems to be everywhere in things, in being, their secret foundation and secret need to grow. If no one wants to give up life, it is because this joy is there everywhere. So remember last time we did a talk, 3 steps and all is sky and God. What was the third step? To see that God is in everything. So God as joy is in everything, everywhere. It needs nothing in order to be. It is irrefutably like a rock through all time and all space, like a smile behind and everywhere. A laugh was a response to pleasure and pain. The whole riddle of the universe is there. There is no other. An imperceptible smile, a nothing which is everything. And is all this joy, because all is spirit which is joy, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, joy, the eternal triad which is the universe and which we are. The secret we must discover and live through the long evolutionary journey. From delight all these beings are born, by delight they exist and grow, to delight they return. Taittiriya Upanishad. And this passage from Savitri, a hidden bliss is at the root of things. Same thing Savitri is saying, behind everything there is an undiscovered joy. A hidden bliss is at the root of things. A mute delight regards time's countless works. To house God's joy in things, space gave wide room. To house God's joy in self, our souls were born. This universe an old enchantment guards. Its objects are carved cups of world delight, whose charmed wine is some deep soul's rapture drink. The all-wonderful is God, has packed heaven with his dreams. He has made blank ancient space his marble house. He spilled his spirit into matter's signs. His fires of grandeur burn in the great sun. He glides through heaven, shimmering in the moon. He is beauty caroling the fields of sound. He chants the stanzas of the odes of wind. He is silence watching in the stars at night. He wakes at dawn and calls from every bough, lies stunned in the stone and dreams in flower and tree. So exactly what we said earlier, that everything is God. The sun, the moon, the birds, the trees. Mother says everything is me wearing a mask. A beautiful mask in nature, not so beautiful masks in human beings, but everything is me. Even in this labor and dolor of ignorance, sadness of ignorance, on the hard perilous ground of difficult earth, in spite of death and evil circumstance, a will to live persists, a joy to be. There is a joy in all that meets the sense, a joy in all experience of the soul, a joy in evil and a joy in good, a joy in virtue and a joy in sin. Can we wrap our minds around this? There is a joy in all experience of the soul, a joy in evil and a joy in good. How do we reconcile this? When somebody is being evil, how do we take joy in it, or do we take joy in it? We are not talking about the vital joy, but he's saying that finally the you that suffers because of another person's evil is the very surface you, which is a mental construct. The real you, which is the psychic being, a laugh is a response to pleasure and pain. So every experience, that deeper part of you is just enjoying. It's not being affected by it. How you'll enjoy a very tragic movie also, no? So some of the old time favorites are tragic movies, but we enjoy it because we know we are outside it. The psychic being always knows it's outside it. It's not really being touched by all this. A joy in all experience of the soul, a joy in evil and a joy in good, a joy in virtue and a joy in sin. Indifferent to the threat of karmic law, joy dares to grow upon forbidden soil. Its sap runs through the plant and flowers of pain. It thrills with the drama of fate and tragic doom. It tears its food from sorrow and ecstasy. On danger and difficulty whets its strength. It wallows with the reptile and the worm and lifts its head, an equal of the stars. So the Godhead wallows with the reptile and the worm, and through evolution grows an equal of the stars. It's the same Godhead, wallowing in the worm and rising up equal in the stars. It shares the fairies' dance, dines with the gnome. It basks in the delight and heat of many suns. The sun of beauty and the sun of power flatter and foster it with golden beams. It grows towards the Titan and the God. So the God essence equally grows towards the Titan, the Asura, and towards the God, because the God essence controls the Titan to play his role exactly as he needs to, and God to play his role exactly as, it's the same force which is making up the God, which is making up the Titan. And in Life Divine, Sri Aurobindo so beautifully says, the strength of consciousness that goes into giving the strength to the strong is equal as the strength of consciousness that goes into the weakness that makes the weak weak. It's equal force. It's giving itself equally to make everything what it needs to be for the evolutionary play. So if you think to God, Ravan would be less dear than a sage, you're mistaken. To God, Ravan is as precious as a sage, isn't it? When Ravan was killed, his soul went straight into Ram's heart. It was all a play. It's not that Ravan was hated by the God essence. So now we come to Adventure of Consciousness by Satprem. The superconscient, this is, I think, Sri Aurobindo's words, the superconscient, not the subconscient, is the true foundation of things. The significance of the lotus is not to be found by analyzing the secrets of the mud from which it grows here. Its secret is to be found in the heavenly archetype of the lotus that blooms forever in the light above. So a lotus grows in mud, right? But Sri Aurobindo is telling us the secret of the lotus is not to be found in the mud in which it grows. The secret of the lotus is in the archetype of the lotus which ever blooms in the sky above. It's this poetic way of saying that the truth of us is not found in the subconscient. Subconscient is that which has frequencies below the waking state. Our truth is more correctly found in the subconscient, the higher intelligence where we are one with God. That is our real truth and foundation. Now this is Satprem again. We appear to progress from below upwards, or from past to future, or from night to conscious light, but that is our narrow momentary vision that cuts out the totality of the picture. Otherwise, how would we see that it is the future that pulls us, not the past that pushes us? So beautiful. It's the future that pulls us, Isha, not the past that pushes us. So, we think that when we are not on the path of yoga, it's the past that is really coming into the projecting itself into the present and attracting the future. But when we are on the path of yoga, Mother is our future. It's the future that pulls us forward, not the past that pushes us forward. Because left to our own means, we'd never grow out of our past. But because the Mother's force is with us, that is the force which is the future pulling us forward towards our evolution. So he says it very beautifully. We would see that it's the future that pulls us, not the past that pushes us. And the light from above that slowly enters our night. How could night ever create all this light? Those of us, I'm very delighted many times because I often meet my ex-students who 6 months ago were in such a sad state, things going wrong, and then when I meet them 6 months later, I just met somebody yesterday, so happy, so well adjusted, so free of baggage, and it really makes me so happy. It's obviously their constant connection to Mother, and these are people who are constantly reaching out. They, even at young age of 25, 26, they are making solo trips to Pondicherry. They are constantly listening to talks, working, doing yoga, and somehow when they settle inside, it's so beautiful to see the outer life flowering. So you can't say that they did it themselves. They couldn't have. It's obviously the Mother's force working on them. It's the future pulling them forward. If we had been born out of the night, we would end up only in the night. This is an eternal tree whose root is above, but its branches are downward, says the Katha Upanishad. We feel we are making great efforts to grow, to understand and know. We feel a tension towards the future, but that is a small perspective. There may be another perspective from which we would see the superconscious future striving to enter our present. So it's so beautiful, this force about that mother talks about, which we also connect with in our meditations, is the future pulling us forward. So it's so silly not to connect with this force on a daily basis and use that as a leverage to grow, instead of just making all our efforts the way we know it to grow, because that's so limited compared to what this force can do when we tune into it. And we might see that our great efforts were only the resistance put up by our denseness and darkness. The future does not move only from below upwards, otherwise there would be no hope for the earth. It would end up exploding heavenwards in a supreme psychic tension, or else falling back into its night. The future also moves from above downwards. It descends more and more into our mental fog, our vital infusion, into the subconscious and inconscient night, until it illuminates everything, reveals everything, heals everything, and finally fulfills everything. And the more it descends, greater the resistance. Ours is the Iron Age, the time of the great revolt and peril, the time of hope. At the supreme point where this future touches the lowest depths of the past, where this light bursts through the bottom of the night, we will find, God willing, the secret of death and of immortal life. And we look down below, nowhere else we will find mud and nothing but mud. Okay, so let's try and see. How many of you felt this very consciously? Nobody? This overhead space? Yeah, few of us have, right? Let's try and connect with it. Let's sit up straight. So first, put your hand at the center of your chest, like I have. Feel your breath. And take your awareness behind where your palm touches. That is the seat of the psychic being, the presence of Mother inside us, that whose response to pleasure and pain is only a laugh, that which knows the truth behind every mask. So gather all the scattered threads of your awareness into the heart space. If you like, bring the image of your highest reverence in the heart, or just the sun. Gather your aspiration in the heart. You can relax your hand if you like. Inhale, climb up to your throat and top of the head and above. Exhale, stay focused in the overhead space. Inhale, feel your longing for your future, your aspiration for the future which hovers over the head, Mother's light and force. Let that longing and aspiration call, climb up to the overhead space as you breathe in. Exhale, stay in the overhead space. See if you can feel a substance pressing down above your head. Now inhale, enter the heart, climb to that overhead cloud of peace, that substance of peace. Exhale, breathe out and flow down your body, and you'll feel the substance over your head flowing like rain in your body, but a rain which is made of light, not water. So some of you may like to just stay concentrated over your head, because that's such a pleasant sensation. like the mother felt when she was little, some of you may like to invite it to flow down into your body, either as spine. If you feel light and joy and gladness flowing, that is your future descending into you. The future that pulls you ahead rather than the past pushing you forward. When I'm pulled ahead by the future, it's a path of growth and evolution. When I'm pushed by the past, it's the same cycles of karma repeating themselves over and over again. But we have the assurance that our future pull is stronger than the push of the past, just the way we have the assurance that grace is superior to karma, that grace is superior to karma. So now just stay focusing overhead for 3 more breaths. And then slowly open your eyes. Whenever you're ready. So could anyone sense this substance overhead? What did it feel like?
For me, it's peace.
Okay, it's peace. How many of you could sense something above your head? You could sense, yeah? So what did it feel like?
Flowing water.
It felt like flowing water, yeah? Peace and silence, yeah? You felt a current flowing down, yeah. So all of you have it. By virtue of being human, all of you have it. But just the way your heart is beating, but you have to develop a sense. All of us won't feel our heartbeat just now, no? If I tell you to feel it. Just like that. But when you're really quiet, you feel your heartbeat. So this is beautiful. The mother says that whenever she was upset, she would just be quiet and feel this force and everything would become right. Why don't we take a page from her book and just do that when things go wrong? It's so easy. Once you've had an experience like that, most people so this was about adventure of consciousness. Now we come to Michael Singer, the untethered soul. He says, if anything happens that challenges how you view things, you fight, you defend, you rationalize, you get frustrated and angry over simple little things. This is the result of being unable to fit what's actually happening into your model of reality. If you want to go beyond your model, you have to take the risk of not believing in it. If your mental model is bothering you, it's because it doesn't incorporate reality. Your choice is either resist reality or go beyond the limits of your model. So, what is this model that he's talking about? Our model of reality is what? The way you perceive things. Your idea that I'm sitting in this room, I'd like the temperature to be a certain way. That's your model of reality, right? And you believe it should be that way. But suppose you just let it go. The temperature is not what my mind feels it should be. It is what it is. Why don't I make peace with it? isn't it? I had asked y'all to bring last time's talk into your life and share it. Did anyone practice anything?
I had an experience.
Would you come here?
So the day after our talk, I was going. Sorry. So the day after our talk, I was going for a concert, and I was late. It was my fault, and I was very stressed that I would miss my favorite act, and in a sort of fight or flight state because I was rushing. And then I realized that it was my vital that had this desire to see this act. And I asked myself, am I actually letting this part of me rattle my nervous system so badly? And then I remembered our talk, and I made an effort to surrender, and I was able to some extent. And even the mental remembrance of it, and I'm letting this part of me that's not me rattle my physical so badly, was quite helpful.
So you let go of that model in your mind.
Yes.
That I should reach there on time.
Yeah.
You made peace with, okay, if I don't see
Yeah.
it, it's fine. Wonderful. Anyone else?
So I was struggling, like I've left the reading since a long. I was struggling and I was like, I really want to read, but I'm not able to open the book and read. So I was listening to Alok's talk, and suddenly it happened that around 12 o'clock at night I woke up and I got the book Savitri, and I just read little bit, and now since 5 days, like without reading it, I'm not able to sleep.
Lovely.
So at
Beautiful.
least,
Beautiful.
That struggle, I just gave up. I just surrendered that if it has to happen, it will happen, and it happened.
Lovely. Lovely. Nobody else?
Yes, two talks before you had told us that whenever there is something tension, just step back and just relax. That is really helping.
Lovely.
It happens that many times that anxiety is so much that you forget to do that.
Yes.
But that moment you remember, there's peace.
Lovely. Lovely.
I would share this.
Come,
that
Nash.
I'll speak aloud, don't worry.
Okay,
I'll be
okay.
heard. So I realized that this experience happened with me with a difficult person. So a person that reflects difficult to me at times. It so happened that in certain instances when I softened, I thought of doing things for that person out of a feeling of compassion. So it reflected back to me that this is only possible because there is a commonality of God essence in that person and in me. I realized that I was not feeling compassion in itself for the person, but there is something in me which resonates with that person. It comes out as compassion.
Nice.
It's not a rational thing, because how could two different responses fit for the same object? It is only possible because both are merged by this God essence. Because there are two polar opposites of feeling. One feeling is this is a difficult person, another feeling is I feel compassion and care for this person. It's only possible because
So one is resentment to the person and one is compassion.
compassion to the person. So if both can fit, that can only mean that it can't be either black or white. There's some grey area. That grey area, that glue that is merging both black and white is this God essence.
Okay. Okay. So, if you want to go beyond your model, you have to take the risk of not believing in it. If your mental model is bothering you, it's because it doesn't incorporate reality. In order to truly go beyond your model, you must first understand why you built it. The easiest way to understand this is to study what happens when the model doesn't work. Have you ever built your whole world on a model of life predicted upon another person's behavior or the permanence of a relationship? For example, if you built your model of life on the thought that I want to be with this person forever and I'll be happy if this person always treats me in a certain way, and it won't happen, your model gets challenged. If so, you ever had that foundation pulled out from under you? Somebody leaves you, somebody dies, something goes wrong, something shakes your model to the core. When this happens, your entire view of who you believe you are, including your relationship to everyone and everything around you, begins to fall apart. You panic and do everything you can to hold it together. You beg, fight, and struggle to try to keep your world from collapsing. Once you've had an experience like that, and most people have, you rate the model you've built as tenuous at best. The entire thing can fall apart. The whole model and all that it's built upon, including your entire view of yourself and everything else, can start to crumble. What you experience when this happens is one of the most important learning experiences of your life. You come face to face with what made you build the model. The level of discomfort and disorientation you experience is frightening. You struggle to just get back some semblance of normal perception. What you are really doing is trying to pull the mental model back around you so that you can settle down into your familiar mental settings. That's why it's so difficult to let go, no? Even if there's a very toxic relationship, it's going apart, you keep thinking of ways you can get it back because you want your familiar model of well-being back. But your whole world doesn't have to fall apart in order for us to see what we are doing here. We are constantly trying to hold it all together. If you really want to see why you do things, then don't do them and see what happens. I gave you the example of my tea experiments. Let's say you're a smoker. If you decide to stop smoking, you quickly confront the urges that cause you to smoke. The urges are the reason you smoke. They are the outermost layer of the cause. If you sit through those urges, you will see what caused them. You get what he's saying? It's an urge to smoke, but don't stop there. Sit through it. Why do you have this urge to smoke? Because you're unhappy, you're restless. And you feel if you reach out for that smoke or that food or whatever, that restlessness will go. And you go deeper and deeper, layer and layer behind. If you can get comfortable with what you see, you will face the next layer of causation and so on, layer upon layer. So there are two ways you can live. You can devote your life to staying in your comfort zone, or you can work on your freedom. In other words, you can devote your life to the process of making sure everything fits within your limited model. For example, when I'm traveling, I need ABC comforts and I'll make sure I have them. But what Michael Singer is saying, go beyond your comfort zone. Let go of one thing just to see what will happen if I don't have that. Let go of a model to see what will happen. To understand this better, let's take a trip to the zoo. Imagine that you're having a great time until you see a tiger inside a small cage. This causes you to contemplate what it would be like to live the rest of your life in such tight confinement. The very thought is extremely frightening to you. But in truth, the confines of your comfort zone create just such a cage. The inner cage doesn't limit your body, it limits the expanse of your consciousness. Because you're unable to go outside your comfort zone, you are in essence locked in confinement. If you examine this, you will see that you're willing to stay in this cage because you're afraid. You're willing to stay in the cage of being treated badly by a person because you're afraid of what would life be like without having this person. So long as you have this, the person has inroads to keep treating you badly. Once and for all, confront your fear of losing the person. And once you confront that and let it go, you'll come from such a solid space to that person that that person will automatically change towards you. You get what I'm saying? Because everything is about the vibe you carry. Isha? Every moment of his life, he thinks somebody is trying to hurt him. If you offer him a tiger's cage, that's a paranoid person who feels every moment somebody is trying to hurt me. You offer him a tiger's cage, he might accept your offer. He doesn't see it as being locked in a cage. He sees it as protection from what could harm him. That which looks like a prison to you looks like safety to him. What if a security service came to your house and bolted down all the doors and barred all the windows? If you happened to be inside at that time, would you panic and want to get out, or would you thank them for helping you feel safe? Most people have the second reaction. If somebody came to your house and locked up everything, would you panic at being locked in, or would you feel safe? In a way, when we are living in our comfort zones, the comfort zones are the locks and securities. A simple thing like you're in a lift with a neighbor you don't know. Your comfort zone is to pretend you're busy on the phone. But why not give him a smile? Why not get to know the neighbor? Why not say, you live on this floor, what do you do? Have a pleasant conversation. You don't have to have this distance. But to do that, you have to overcome your comfort zone. It starts with little things like that. Most people have the second reaction when it comes to the limitations of their psyche. They want to stay in there and feel safe. They say, don't say, get me out of here. I'm locked in this tiny world in which everything has to be a certain way. I have to worry about what everybody is doing, what I look like, and everything I've ever said I want out. Instead of wanting out, they try to keep their cage stable. If something is not comfortable, they do whatever they must to protect themselves to get back to safety. So suppose you're waiting alone for somebody. Your comfort zone is you want to look occupied. You don't want people to see that, so you'll just take out your phone and pretend to be busy on it. But why not do that one day? Why not take out your phone? Actually, I have somebody in mind, very sweet person, but for some reason, she's a little awkward with me. So whenever I meet her, she won't say hi to me. She'll be busy on her phone and she'll wait for me to go and say hi to her. So in my mind, I'm thinking she has to get out of this comfort zone at some point. She doesn't have to pretend to be busy on the phone because she doesn't want to make that first move of saying hi to me. These are little things, but we start with that. Most people have the second reaction when it comes to the limitations of their psyche. They want to stay safe in there and feel safe. They don't say, get me out of here. I'm locked in this tiny world in which everything has to be a certain way. I have to worry about what everybody's doing, what I look like, and everything I've ever said. I want out. Instead of wanting out, they try to keep their cage stable. If something is not comfortable, they do whatever they must to protect themselves to get back to the feeling of safety. If you've ever done that, it means you love your cage. When the cage of the psyche got rattled, you fixed it so that you could be comfortable inside. When you truly awake spiritually, you realize you are caged. You wake up and realize that you can hardly move in there. You're constantly hitting the limits of your comfort zone. That means you're constantly unhappy because life will always challenge your comfort zone, and when it's not met, you start getting agitated. You see that you're afraid to tell people what you really think. You see that you're too self-conscious to express yourself. You see that you have to stay on top of everything to be okay. Why? There's really no reason. You have set these limits on yourself. If you don't stay within them, you get scared. You feel hurt and you feel threatened. That's your cage. The tiger knows the limits of his cage when he hits the bars. Your bars are the outer boundary of your comfort zone. The minute you come to the edge of the cage, it lets you know it in no uncertain terms. When you approach the edges, you feel insecurity, jealousy, fear, or self-consciousness. You pull back, and if you're like most people, you stop trying. Spirituality begins when you decide that you'll never stop trying. Spirituality is a commitment to go beyond no matter what it takes. It's an infinite journey based upon going beyond yourself every minute of the day for the rest of your life. What does this mean? It's an infinite journey of going beyond yourself. Beyond yourself is beyond your comfort zone. Challenge yourself to do something you've not done before. That breaks the mold in which you want to appear in people's mind. No, we have to live up to that image. Break that. Eventually you will realize it cannot actually hurt you to go beyond your psychological limits. If you're willing to just stand at the edge and keep walking, you will go beyond. You used to pull back when it got uncomfortable. Now relax and go past that point. That is all it takes to go beyond. Go beyond where you were a minute ago by handling what's happening now. So in this moment, something happens to make you uncomfortable. One is you can justify that discomfort and try to make yourself comfortable. One is what Payal was saying, you just relax, let go of your need to be comfortable. It is what it is, let me make peace with it. That is what it means to go beyond. Okay, so that was Michael Singer. And now we come back to Mother. Mother was a great one who never believed in any limits and any comfort zones. She was just born like that. And here are two beautiful stories from her childhood to tell this to us. She says, I was wandering through all the human constructions in her meditations, but not the ordinary constructions, the philosophical, religious, spiritual constructions, and they were symbolized by huge buildings, huge that were so high, as if men were as tall as the edge of this stool, quite tiny in comparison with those huge things. I was going about and each person came saying, mine is the true path. So I would go with him. This is not from her childhood, that will come later. This is in her meditation. So I would go with him to an open door through which an immense landscape could be seen. And just when we came to the door, it would close. I was quite amused. I said to myself, it's quite amusing. You know, when they spoke, you could see through a door vast expanses before you in full light. It was superb. Then I would go with that person towards the door and the door closed. It was really interesting. This she's seeing in her meditation. There was no end to them, and there were people, always new people. Now men, now women, now young people, now old people, and from every possible country. It lasted a very long time. I said to them, I remember that I said to one of them, yes, all this is very fine, but it isn't true food. It leaves you famished. Then there was one who was, I don't know which country he was from, Mother says. He wore a dark robe, he had black hair, a somewhat round face. He may have been Chinese, I can't say, I don't remember. He said to me, oh, not with me, taste this and see. And he gave me something to eat. It was absolutely first rate. Oh, it was excellent. So I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you are clever, show me your path." He told me, "I have no path." Beautiful, no? All the others were saying, "Mine is the right path, mine is the right path," and whatever they offered was insipid food for the mother. And this person who said, "I have no path, I'll be led by life wherever it takes me," that was the real delicious food. So we are going to be, this is Sat Prem, so we are going to try to be as wise as this Chinese man and refrain from boxing mother into cubby holes. We always feel the need to put one box inside another, one box inside another. Mother never liked laws, Sat Prem says, whether moral, Newtonian or otherwise. Laws are in a way our comfort zones, no? Laws we've made for our living or laws that have been conditioned into us. She was very often reproached. "But naturally, that is against the rules," she exclaimed one day before some impertinent and shocked individual. Mother says, "I make a habit of doing everything against the rules. Otherwise, there would be no point in my being here. The rules could just go on and on." We have already mentioned the incident in the Fontainebleau forest. When pursued by her friend, she was running without watching where she was going. Suddenly, she found herself on the ledge overhanging the road and carried by her own momentum fell off. So there was a ledge, a drop and a road below. She found herself on the ledge overhanging the road and carried by her own momentum fell off and down into the road below, freshly paved with flint, which is hard. Whoosh, I went sailing into the air, Mother says. I was 10, 11 or at the most, with no notion of the miraculous or the marvelous, nothing. I was just flung into the air and I felt something supporting me, holding me up, and I was literally set down on the ground on the stones. But what is interesting about this incident, which we might attribute to anything at all, is Meera's comments. Mother's name was Meera. I found it perfectly natural. I understood. Not a scratch, not a speck of dust, nothing, absolutely intact. I fell down very, very slowly. Then everyone rushed up. So do you understand? She was falling down and she actually felt hands carrying her and putting her down. Oh, it's nothing, I said. I'm all right. Yes, nothing, not a single thought. Especially no thought, because if she had thought about it even for a second, she would have probably broken her nose outright or worse. But where is the worse? If Mother had believed that falling off means I will get hurt, if that had been the law of her being, she would have definitely got hurt. But in her, she says when she was young, it was very natural for her to believe in magic and miracles and the supreme protection. It wasn't a question in her head that she wasn't protected, because nobody had conditioned laws into her. So you find it perfectly natural, so you quite naturally carried. It's simple, simplicity itself. Could it be that our minds have invented a non-existent gravity? Or is there perhaps another type of gravity? One day, with a refreshing simplicity, Mother said to me, I don't know the rules, so I don't even have to fight them. Another incident, there is no scarcity of them in Mother's life, took place in the Grand Salon of Square du Roule. A Grand Salon is by definition ornamental and rather boring, but not for Meera, who says nothing. However, she never says anything, this stubborn and silent girl. She does it. She used to speak very little as a child, but she used to do everything. I'll show you how one should dance, Mother said to all her friends. All the little friends circled around her, and the Louis XV pedestal tables were pushed out of the way. I went to the corner of the room to get the longest distance to another corner, and I told them, one single step in the middle. The room was more than 30 feet long. Can you imagine? It's a huge distance, 30 feet. And I did it. I sprang. I didn't even feel I was jumping. It was like dancing, you know, like when they dance on point in ballet. Landed on the tip of my toes, bounced up, and so she jumped from here to 15 feet. A little child landed on her toes and jumped the remaining 15 feet. You can't do that alone. Even champions cannot. And I didn't run. She had no training. I was standing in the corner and hop, up I went. I said hop to myself soundlessly and I landed on the tip of my toes, bounced and landed on the other side. Quite evidently, I was carried. And Meera added, there were many things of the kind, all of which seemed to me perfectly natural. It didn't feel as though I was doing something miraculous, perfectly natural. Why was it perfectly natural? Because she didn't know the laws, so she didn't have to follow them. Had she felt it were miraculous, the miracle would not have happened. And she would have found herself sprawled out in the middle of the floor. Perhaps we have invented the miraculous as a kind of incredible lie covering our one true machine. Or is it the machine that is quite miraculous in the universe of complication? Mother says the soul was very alive at that time when she was little. She did not even have a name for the most natural of things, though she had labeled it. The soul would have vanished in thin air like the deer of Fontainebleau had she labeled it. Mother says, with all its strength, the soul resisted the intrusion of material logic of the world. It all seemed perfectly natural to me. I simply thought, no accidents can happen to me. So beautiful. She jumped with the idea, no accidents can happen to me, and no accident did. At times we wonder if the accident of the world happens only in our thoughts. If we change thoughts, it might not happen at all, or perhaps happen in another way, a charming way. Who knows? It is this other way that we want to track down. For after all, what is most interesting is not these trifling incidents, but the seed they hold. Years later, indeed 75 years later, as she recalled these dancing, airborne memories, Mother suddenly noticed the strange condition between this impertinent non-gravity and a certain inner center, which she felt quite well near the heart, and which caused a sort of, Mother says, harmonious, undulating movement, like great movements of wings. So this anti-gravity, the hands which came and picked her up, it's like anti-gravity. She identified it as coming from her heart, as pulsations of the great wings. The very center from where she drew the Shakti, whenever she wanted to shake off Matteo, her brother's fits of anger. Her brother was a sweet chap, she says. She was close to him, but he was very violent and he almost killed her 3 times, apparently. And her mother said that next time you will kill her. And Matteo felt so bad about it that he never sort of got violent with. So she had quite an interesting family. If we blame her for the family she's given her, look at the family she had chosen for herself, and she grew in that. She wanted to shake off Matteo's fits of anger, Mathilde was her mother, Mathilde's rebukes, the same vibration of these great wings in her heart. Perhaps there's another way of vibrating that eludes Newton and all other laws. We must learn the law of the great wings. So with this, we come to the end. So how would we bring this talk into our lives? Okay, what was this talk all about? So to sum it up, we began by discussing that all of us have the psychic being within us, a portion of the mother within us, And the response of the psychic being to both pleasure and pain is just a laugh. It never gets affected. So the more we learn to witness what's happening to us, the closer we come to the psychic being. And there is a force in nature which helps us to grow into our God self. When the mother was very little, and she says the world really shocked her because she kept getting blows, seeing people's smallness. She would just sit and feel the presence over her head. Nobody had told her about it. She discovered it by herself. And feeling it, well-being would be restored. So it's an invitation to us that when things go wrong, instead of running to people, we sit with ourselves, we connect with our heart or the overhead space, and we tune into this very special force which Mother says is the future pulling us forward. And that we grow with leaps and bounds when we are pulled ahead by our future than just randomly pushed forward by our past and the past karmas. So this is available to us. And another thing we discussed is getting out of our comfort zones. We have a model of reality and we feel the world should be that way. And very often the way the world is, it's the opposite of our model of reality. But how do we know our model of reality is true? The world out there which conflicts with our model of reality is the world God created. The God is creating every minute. How do we know that our idea of it is superior to His idea? But we do believe our idea is superior. That's what creates preference, right? And that preference is the root of our suffering. When the Buddha said there is suffering, his first noble truth, it was telling us that you have a preference of a model of the world which you feel should be. His second noble truth is desire is the cause of suffering. Because you have this model in your head, you suffer. His third noble truth is give up desire, suffering will end. Give up your preferences, let go of what you think life should be and make peace with what is in the moment, and you won't suffer. It's such a profound truth, isn't it? So at every moment, give up your idea, your preferences, whatever life gives you, breathe out, relax, let go. Let go of this thought that I'd be happier if it was like this, happier it was like that. This is what life's bringing me. I'll embrace it wholeheartedly and I'll keep softening. So that's our continual practice. So 2 practices for the week. One is an ongoing practice of giving up preferences, giving up our comfort zones. 2, whenever we are really in a spot, to try and connect in the heart or overhead and see what happens to us when we do that. Yeah? So hands together in a namaste at the heart. Take a long, slow inhalation. Breathe out with Om. Next 2 Saturdays I'll be traveling, so there'll be no Savitri class.